and I thought to myself, I don't have many more of these incidents in me.
Did you set up a budget in advance? Were you surprised by anything?
The most infuriating comment that I get.
Welcome to Bangkok. Today we're sitting down with a content creator who spent most of the past 3 years navigating life here in Bangkok. We're gonna have an unfiltered conversation about making the move, along with the biggest challenges, becoming a content creator and adjusting to life here in the kingdom. Let's go meet Sam. So welcome, Sam. Thanks for coming on the channel.
Nice to see you again, sir.
All right, so why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Where are you from? What were you doing before you came to Thailand?
I am Australian and I lived my whole life in Sydney. For the last 15 years, I was a community welfare worker. So I worked primarily with people that were homeless, from working with really chronically homeless people that were sleeping in a street and had been doing that for many years, right down to young teenagers who had just become homeless overnight.
What led you to ultimately decide to move to Thailand? Was there a specific moment when you thought, I'm gonna leave, or was it cumulative? Walk us through your thought process there.
So I worked really closely with young people who had either been removed from their family homes or had to leave for whatever reason. So I was in there every day, helping them to live their daily life, helping them to learn to cook, learn to clean, learn to do the washing, but more importantly, learn to regulate their behaviours. And a lot of these people hadn't had the easiest lives, and by the time they're 13 or 14, 15, they're becoming young adults, all that stuff starts to come out. So after 7 years of being in that environment, I actually got to, you said what was the precipitating event, I can remember it. There'd been, in the household, there'd been a flare-up, and it had just been chaotic, and the police had come and the ambulance come like they did every week. And we got through it, and I got to the end of that, and I thought to myself, I don't have many more of these incidents in me. I'm ready for a change, and I'm ready for a big change. We won't get too down and dark and dirty too early. But I will say that my best friend of the last 15 years had already moved to Thailand. He'd moved to Korea, and then during COVID, actually, during the lockdown, he'd moved to Thailand. And so me, like a lot of people around the world, were stuck at home watching these videos, and there's Adam running around Thailand, and that's probably when the idea started festering in my head. I'm back in Sydney dealing with trauma and chaos. My work, I was lucky in that I was able to go to work every single day through COVID. I didn't miss a day of work. We were never shut down. So while that was my life, I'm seeing his life, and that's where the idea began.
Yeah, so he's good friends with Adam Keys One, another popular YouTuber here in Thailand. And so that was very influential in you making the move, ultimately deciding, hey, that life looks quite interesting.
We'd had a very tight friendship for a long time. We'd grown through our 20s together, and we were competitive best friends, Anything I do, he'll try, and vice versa.
I have a very similar story on that one, with a friend who did really, really well in a business, and it motivated me so much from a competitive angle. But it's not just competitive, it's that you see somebody close to you doing it. And so often we see other people get success, they're far away, and we think, oh, that's luck or that's something else. But when you see it and it's the person who's sitting right next to you for years, you can't chalk it up to luck. You have to chalk it up, wait, why am I not doing that?
See any familiarities between our stories, or?
There is similarity. So when I left my job, this was all the way back in 2015, and I used to work for the Canadian government and then a regulatory organization called CIRA. We regulated the internet. It's not as conspiratorial as you might imagine. In fact, it was extremely boring. Most of the time you were doing nothing. The vast majority of the time, they're just kind of sitting around, waiting for the day to pass. And in the beginning, when you graduate university, you think, oh, I'm earning a good salary, good career, nice status. But then, 1 year passes, 2 year passes, 3, 4, 5, and I just started thinking, this is it. This is what life is. You sit in these four walls, no communication.
Can you sort of show us how big your cubicle actually was?
Well, it was probably, maybe double my arm length. Now the cubicle itself, not the worst world.
And how many hours a day?
So that would be 8 hours.
Some people watching are going to be thinking, like, damn that cow. How dare he be in aircon in a cubicle like that? I'm in a crane operator in the heat, like 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day. What would you say to that if someone's,
That's when the interview gets flipped back. Yeah, it's. I think that the human condition is challenging, and that most jobs they pin you in to a daily life where you repeat the same pattern, the same loop over and over again, and then eventually you're just going to die. And once you could predict every day for the next year, where's the excitement, where's the adrenaline, and where's life? Because that's not how people live. That's not how we've really evolved, to just be in a confined space over and over again. There's a bit of a prison element there. It's a comfortable prison, so it's not meant to complain about it. None of that's meant to complain. It's that you're always faced with a decision about the life you want to live, and as you age, the decision will get harder. And so at an earlier age, you can actually take a lot of chances, and you will be forgiven. Life forgives you far more easily. So let's ask you the next question here, because I think it's the next one that a lot of people would be curious about, is what was the level of planning you did before you moved out here?
From decision to getting on that plane and leaving Sydney was about 4.5 months. I began to sell my furniture. I began to get my car ready so I could sell it for the best price that I could. I had just shy of 10,000 Australian.
Did you set up a budget in advance? Did you have it all laid out? Or was this some hopium?
You was the analyst mind. I know you arrived with a budget, I'm sure. Did you? No.
That
makes me feel better because I did not.
No. I had more money when I arrived, though. I had about 40,000 Canadian. And how long did that 7,000 take you? Tell me a little bit about making the move, finding a condo, doing all those on-the-ground things that somebody might not think that much about when they're looking at social media or YouTube.
I had decided that I wanted to live near the water. My whole life has been, when I'm not at work, has been around boats and water and the Hawkesbury River in Sydney and stuff. So Jomtien stood out to me as like the obvious choice. Beach, palm trees, dusty streets, you can ride motorbikes up and down. If you want to party, Pate is right there. I never even considered Bangkok as an option. So I slipped in pretty efficiently. I arrived, by walking around, me and Keezy actually did a walk around for a couple of days, and I decided this is the district I like. Let's go and have a look in those condos. They look all right. Can I go and knock? Yeah, I found one via just walking around, word of mouth. Right price. I paid 6 months up front, which some people might think is a risk. They might kick you out, and there might be no recourse to. But that was a weight off my mind, so I could pay that.
And what were you paying for that condo?
Because I paid 6 months up front in cash, I handed it to the lady and she was like, okay, deal. The landlord, that was $6,500 a month for a studio a bit back from the beach but it had water views. Old building. And I'm sure that the Thai locals were paying a lot less than the...
You think so?
Yeah, maybe 1,000 baht less a month, I don't know.
This is a big sort of thing in Thailand. Do foreigners pay higher prices for things like condos? We have the dual pricing. But I actually met somebody in my condo a while ago. They were Thai. They're paying more than me. That's because I'd negotiated. So I'd negotiated with the owner. It's never been my experience to encounter dual pricing in condos, but you might have been. You never know.
Contrary to popular opinion, Thai people, like, negotiating over cost is not something that everyone's comfortable with.
No. That's why they often won't.
because it sort of, there's a bit of a loss of face there, right?
Exactly. The
Yeah.
face culture means
Yeah.
that they're less likely to want to negotiate
Yeah.
for many things.
So
than
if a
foreigners.
tourist comes here and treats it like Egypt, where, you know, when you want to buy a t-shirt in Egypt, you have to like, rah, 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 rah. Like they hate that.
There's places for it. That's what I would say. There are places where it's almost expected, and then most of the society it's not. Like you go to MBK Mall, you have to negotiate because they overprice deliberately and force you to negotiate. So when you first moved here, $7,000 in the bank, what did your monthly costs look like? And was it lower or higher than you might have expected? Were you surprised by anything, any of the spending you were doing?
I knew I had to reduce spending compared to holiday funds. But I clicked into being frugal pretty well straight away. I was eating the street food. I was buying some groceries and doing some cooking at home. And if you shop from the markets, you can just about sort of break even to the cost of street food. And you get the benefit of doing that is you get to choose the sauces you get to put in. You get to choose how much palm oil gets guzzled into each dish. So when people say I'll never cook in Thailand, there are good reasons, I think, for.
I've always cooked in Thailand.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. It's relaxing to me.
That's
I like
why
to
you
cook.
look like Arnold Schwarzenegger now.
That's the goal.
A young, slightly ginger Arnold Schwarzenegger. People are going to spin out and they're like, well, how do you expect to stay here forever, Sam, with 7,000 baht?
$7,000.
7,000
baht, you would definitely have some problems.
And that
Well,
is,
that's day one. We're gone.
and I have to stipulate that I didn't come here to retire. By the time that $7,000 had run out, I was getting monthly YouTube paychecks.
Well, what was so if you were to look at your monthly expenses in those first couple of months, do you have a rough estimate? Like if you had about 6,500 on a condo?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I tried to cap spending at 500 baht a day. That's not including the condo. When I say 500, I mean like activity spending. So breakfast, lunch, dinner, a couple of beers, a taxi ride here, a bus fare there. Add the essentials on top. You know, your healthcare, your rent, your electricity, your water bill. And there's two water bills. There's the water that comes out of the shower, and there's also the cost of drinking water.
The 7-Eleven water that you have to buy.
I've just done a video on that. I'm going to say 30,000 baht as a base.
My lowest budget, I made a video about it a few years back, $600 a month in Bangkok.
Wow.
Back in 2019, when I moved back and I had about $2,000 in the bank. So I'd lived here for 3 years. I knew everything about the city already, so that was a big plus.
You knew where you could get cheap meals.
I knew everything, and I liked to cook at the time, and I was really into fitness, and I was just productive. I got into excellent shape because I wasn't drinking. There was no vices. I eliminated every single vice because it was taking away my productive energy that I was focused on building online at the time. And actually, the pairing of a strict budget with a productive focus is probably one of the most powerful things somebody can arrive with. And it really, really paid off for me over time. At the time, I was trading. I got into trading a lot, and it was very, very lucrative at a certain point, and I invested everything. And I kept my budget extremely low.
This conversation reminded me of a comment I got a couple of nights ago. And it was about, I'd done a recent video about living an ultra low budget day in Bangkok. The viewer was essentially saying, I love seeing the ultra low budget day in Bangkok, but I would not choose to live this way. My preference is to grind ultra hard and live my life to the max. And then I responded delicately, and I said, hey, thank you so much for sharing. Can I just push back a little bit here? So his understanding of living life to the max was having as much money as he could earn, so he could presumably live life to the max was like to purchase the most amount of stuff or whatever. I think that's what he was getting at. And I said, I work as hard as I can, and I certainly don't have any Mercedes-Benz or anything to show for it, but I feel rich surrounded by culture and people. So we're on the same wavelength, but two completely different ways of looking at it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that there's a certain level that anybody's going to achieve, and then they'll be relatively happy. There's a lot of studies done on this, that after a certain point, people don't get progressively happier. And so once you've met your needs, once you've got enough that you feel comfortable, progressively more money stops making people progressively happier in a linear way.
Right.
And there is a lot of research on that. And I think that some people get trapped in the mentality that if I just make this much more, if I just buy this, I'll be happy. And that's, when you're looking at life is short.
Oh, yeah.
And within that short time, people grow old, and they may have spent their whole life working for things before ever realizing that those things weren't ever going to make them happy. And it's a trap. It's always been a trap to keep people hustling, to keep people working. It has to come down to happiness. Now, if they're happy, great. There's no issue, right? That's my view of it. If somebody is happy doing what they're doing, then I have no issue with that. If you're happy here doing what you're doing, great. That's life. I mean, you only have a few years. When you start counting them up.
The most infuriating comment that I get consistently again and again and again and again and again and again is, Sam, what are you doing? These are your best working years. Get back to Australia. Go work in the mines for 20 years. Put that nest egg away. And I just have to accept that if I'm making videos, that's going to be an ongoing response. But inside, I'm burning. And I'm like, what world are you living in? So many of my friends have died. I lost my best mate at 32 to cancer. Like, diagnosed, gone. I admire the grind of 30 years in the cubicle or whatever, but shit, man, like, don't think it's a given.
I had a friend I used to work with it was the regulatory organization I was at, and he was a senior lawyer earning big bucks there, and he kept a calendar on his wall to the date he'd retire, and it was 15 years out, and he'd tick off each day.
Oh, the focus. Isn't that amazing?
And I said to him, how much money do you have right now? And he maybe $700,000. And I said, you could do whatever you want right now with that, right? You can move, but he is still there today. And it's been 11 years, and yet he was ticking off each day. And I said to him, you're ticking off days of your life.
Would you say that you are innately a risk taker in general? How close to the sun are you willing to fly when it comes to making a big leap with not enough money? Because it's very personal for each individual, right?
It is. I got a teaching license, so I could teach at international schools, which is what I've been doing. I only recently left my job. I built everything on YouTube that I've done.
Whilst you're working full-time, I know.
While working full-time teaching, so that I always had a backup plan in place. For a lot of people, that's the best strategy currently, is to find yourself something like international teaching. That's probably the best one, because there's a lot of jobs. And you set yourself up with that, and then you test out ideas and you take chances because you've got disposable income. That's what I did. But what exists currently is this geographic arbitrage opportunity. I think in the 20th century it was defined by people wanting to move to the West, where incomes were higher and quality of life was generally going to be better than most countries around the world. That's not necessarily the case anymore. It's the slow boiling frog. Prices in the West have crept up, salaries have stayed relatively stagnant, and people are not nearly as wealthy. And the newer opportunity is to get an online income source that pays you in Western salaries. And I tell this to my Thai friends too, that what they should be doing is aiming to earn an online US dollar or euro or Australian dollar based salary and live here, or live in a different country. It's a big change in the whole world where anybody can pursue this. Anybody can make a YouTube account. Anybody can go out and set up an online business. So when you were doing the content, when you moved over here, did you find it challenging to focus? That can be definitely an issue that crops up over and over again in these conversations.
In terms of focus, okay, this is a good question because Thailand is so full of stimulation, right? And so much is going on in the street. So as a YouTuber, you have to get out there, film it, go back inside and make yourself stay inside and finish the edit and get it out to the public and not get distracted by all the potential distractions out there. And I could be there sitting and it's taken me 3 years, Cal, but I'm slowly getting better at this.
That's the holiday mode, right? I mean, I think that's...
I arrived in holiday mode 100%.
I think everybody does. I think it's a very hard thing to avoid because this is a premier holiday destination. And so if you're coming with the idea that you're going to control your work schedule, you're going to be responsible for maintaining focus, a timeline, and yet you've arrived in one of the top tier tourist destinations in the world where everybody comes to enjoy life. So you're fighting against that on a constant basis. I spent 3 years in the holiday mode myself. My first 3 years here. Great time though. That's one of the things that I think people might mix up, is that that doesn't mean it's a bad thing, as long as you can reset. And I think that's kind of where you're at now. Maybe you can talk a little bit about...
Well, it was sort of serendipitous in a way how my visa issues came about, because I felt like I was coming to the end of my content ceiling living in Jomtien and doing videos around Pattaya. At the same time that I got denied entry coming back from Vietnam.
So that's the story here. So
yeah.
When you were doing the content, you were here for 3 years. Two and a half years.
Yeah.
And what visas were you using at that time?
I was on tourist visa the entire time.
So you do like 60-90, fly out to some neighboring country, stay for maybe a day, 2 days, and then come back.
Yeah, well in my case I tried to stay for like a week and really maximize the video potential there, but by the point was...
Also maximizes your chance of getting back in, because when you do, it's the one where you come in and out.
Yeah.
24-hour period is particularly problematic. When you stay a week, you're less likely to have problems, although now I think you would have more problems.
We're tightened up at the moment.
And then you switched over to education visa, and that's where issues cropped up.
Yeah, it is so heavily scrutinized that when you come in, you have to demonstrate like every hour that you've been at the school. And of course, I couldn't do that. No ill feeling towards immigration and my denial of entry, because I'd been in here so long, and they politely said, I didn't get deported. They just said, go out,
different visa.
Get a different visa and come back. They can tell from my level of language that I love the place, and they can just see in the enthusiasm in your eyes. But they're like, yeah, like you're done. So upon going back to Australia, I could really sit with the fact that I've hit my content ceiling in Jomtien, and I want to branch away from that. I want to do more in-depth studies of Greater Thailand.
I mean, I have a similar experience when I kind of went back to Canada. I had to reset, and often the reset is really important for people when they go through the first cycle in Thailand, and it typically is about a 2 to 3 year cycle, and that's the holiday mode. That's when people do enjoy it. It's very different. There's a lot of uniqueness here, and it's exciting, it's fun, but that starts to stagnate often. And then it can be a bit of a trap, and people don't know what to do next. Yeah. And the reset is really, really helpful there, because you've learned so much in the holiday period. Yeah. And if you then go back, you went back to Australia, how long were you back for?
4.5 months.
Oh, you're short. I was a year. It allowed me to reflect on a lot of things, think about what I really wanted to do, and plan out more coherently a good approach, having all of the experience.
People say, how were you able to get back so fast, Sam? Well, I could go back, and once I decided, I had a couple of weeks of feeling myself back into Australia and considering, do I want to do this? And I got to a point where I thought, no, absolutely not. I want to be in Thailand, so I will forsake everything else. So for 4 months, I did no socializing, essentially no drinking, no nothing. I just worked full time, earning as many Aussie dollars as I could, doing whatever I could, editing other people's, and I was editing Thailand vlogs for people that are lazy, just anything. Stacking away the cash, living in a family's house, and any spare moment I spent working on myself, working on what I really want to get out of the whole content creation thing, and planning for more success when I come back.
So let's talk a little bit about the content side of things. What was the biggest surprise to you in coming out? So you saw Adam making the content, you see it popping up on your screen, and then you find yourself doing it.
I get a lot of enjoyment from the creative process. Me and Adam, our background, and people will freak out hearing this, but it was graffiti. It was graffiti art. And we were both heavily into it, and we were really good at it back in Sydney. And we'd paint big, colourful murals. For 20 years we did this. Cartoons, whatever. We'd invest all our energy into that, right? And planning, executing, out there in the sweat. And then finally you get to go home with this photo, and then you get to make either duplicates of the photos and give them out to your friends, or a little bit down the track, Instagram came out, online came out, and you could disseminate your artwork to the masses. And that's the pat on the back. And I gotta say, I don't really paint graffiti art anymore, but I get the same dopamine dump when I go out in Thailand and take a good video, take it back and craft it together in a really good looking package and then put it out for the people. So the craft, I love it.
Same here, yeah, I agree very, very strongly with that.
But you asked what's something you noticed about the whole content as a whole. Nothing was too much of a surprise because I'd been a sounding board for Keezy for years, and so I knew about the pushback I knew about the hate comments. I knew that there was going to be peaks and troughs in terms of the numbers, and I also knew that often if you put your heart into a project and you think this video is going to and I see cows laughing here, it's not. And if you fart out some it's gonna go viral. Yeah, those two hit the hammer. I think, bit unpredictable.
Hit the nail on the head.
Unpredictability.
The scale of hate you encounter is definitely interesting. Now, I have a laugh at a lot of it.
I don't think there's a single insult that you could say that you could creatively come up with that I've not already heard.
The funny things with the hate is they're on it.
On it. It's like, bing, Cal's got a video out. All right, off to work I go. Quick, move out of the way. I gotta get to the cubicle.
They've got the ding notifications just to be the first one to get some hate on your video. And I appreciate it. I'm like, hey, you take your job more seriously than I do. And that's one that does surprise you because you do put a lot of effort into my videos predominantly have been aimed at helping people make the move.
They're helpful,
navigating,
they're polite, they're intelligent, they're culturally sensitive.
I appreciate
that's enough to really upset people.
But it definitely does upset a certain audience. You had a motorcycle series, which I thought was really artistically strong.
It didn't do well, and that's the best thing I've done. I traveled through really tough towns on my own with no English for days at a time.
That is one of the more disheartening aspects of being a content creator, is when you put a lot of effort into a video and it just gets crushed. And then you see some terrible AI slop just rocketing up. But I think that's how all artists feel at the end of the day. That is part of the creative process, is that what you think of something is not necessarily what the audience will think.
That's been a big surprise, to learn about the differing in opinions.
So I want to thank Sam for coming on, sharing some of his journey, bringing out some of my journey, because there are similarities. A lot of expats, a lot of digital nomads in particular, do go through a very similar process, and it's useful to hear each and every story because it shows you it is never a smooth curve. Lots of different challenges, but it's a lot of fun. And I've linked Sam's channel down below so you can give him a follow. He's a great creator as well.
Thank you very much, sir. Always a pleasure.